Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 176 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom Haggis.
I can't believe in none of these movies no one ever said say cheese.
Second, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Ink Studios, Andrew Zumwalt. Oh. Third, writer, actor, and director, Kyle Fine.
They war crimes.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel Rowald.
Good evening.
Whoa.
Just a good evening, huh, Gabe?
Yeah, that's it. I can't beat you guys. You guys.
Okay, let's go ahead and poke the monkey, find out what we're discussing this month.
Ladies and gentlemen, World War writers and eye patch aficionados, welcome to the main event. Tonight, a duo of docudramas delve into the dangerous lives of two courageous combat correspondents. Will Lee top the leaderboard? Or will a private war win the prize? In the first corner from 2023, written by Liz, Hannah, Marion, Hugh, and John Colley. Directed by Ellen Turris. Starring Alexander Skarsgård, Andy Samberg, and Kate Winslet. Lee! In the second corner from 2018, written by Arash Ahmed and Marie Brenner. Directed by Matthew Heineman. Starring Tom Hollander, Alexandra Moen, and Rosamund Pike. A private war.
All right. Well, every November we try to pick films about people finding out the worst of people. We discuss a lot of war films, more or less, and these are two extraordinary people that we watched these films about, and I can't wait to hear what you think about it. So let's get moving on to our first round, which is writing.
Yeah, let's get ready for some uplifting discussion this evening.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to be uplifting.
Yes, these are tough films. I think somebody said that they couldn't believe nobody said say cheese in these movies, but I think it was Lee. In Lee, she said something along those lines that she made those people smile. Do you guys remember what it was?
Did she
I,
say fromage?
well, that's kind of funny, but no, I don't think that's what it was. She did she,
No.
she did say something at one point. Somebody said something at one point to make them smile. I don't think it was fromage. I don't think that puts the same kind of grin on your face. Although I'll
Does
take
explain a
either.
lot of it does explain a lot of the French photography I've been seeing lately. So
Right, it's all very kind of
like
yeah. What is that facial expression? The French. Uh, yeah. So uh, these are two interesting films. Andrew brought up before we started recording. He brought up like how are we going to approach writing in these because on a certain sense they're almost like documentaries, but they're not. I mean they're films based on people's real lives, but they're definitely very much written in advance of filming and that kind of thing. So, but I think it's always interesting to look at films based on real people, um, and how they get approached. And I always wonder, how much of this is actually accurate. How much of this actually happened. How much of it was enhanced for dramatic purposes and that kind of thing. And I'd like to hear from you guys about the kind of the approach for Lee, where they have her as an older woman doing an interview. And I have to admit, I'm a little naive sometimes. I didn't pick up on it right away. And this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to know how this ends, don't stop now and then watch the movie first. But I was I was like surprised at how it it was basically her son who was interviewing her. But then at the end you realize, well, he never really spoke to her directly about these things, apparently, according to what I saw in the movie. And I wondered about that. I wonder how you guys felt about that because I felt a little bit let down,
it was
honestly,
a li-
because go ahead.
it was a little contrived, I thought. I just
It felt like it, yeah.
when
Hmm.
you have a life with this much um passion and action and um other words that rhyme. I think it's just it kind of struck me as like, did you need to do this? You know? Um
Yeah, and maybe on some level, maybe she really did kind of hide that from him and from other people. Because I feel like there was a lot of prejudice and a lot of shame involved with what she was doing
But
at that time. But I also felt like a little bit let down at the end because all of a sudden she just disappears and you realize that he didn't really have this conversation with her. And how much of what we saw and heard was authentic.
but it specifically said at the end that he never knew anything about it, and it wasn't until
Right,
after she died that he found
right.
all of these pictures and actually unfolded all
Hmm.
of this story about who she
Hmm.
was. And I guess I have to imagine going through just a parent's things or a grandparent or someone very close to you that is, has recently died, you find all of this amazing things, these stories and these moments, I'm sure they're are played out in your head. They're played out in these moments as you
Hmm.
look through. And with some of her writings, and we don't know all the things that he found minus the photography. He may have found some of the stories and some of the writings too that helped him depict these moments. And i and i kind of felt like that was what they were depicting, was he was going through what would this conversation be like if I would have known?
Yeah, I
Right. If
think
he had, if go ahead, Kyle.
I was just gonna say the question there is who is the narrator, and is that narrator reliable for telling the story? How much of
Right.
what we're
Mhm.
seeing of Lee's life is actual fact, and how much is
Mhm.
imagined or gleaned from these pages, which you cannot
Mhm.
piece together someone's life from writing or photographs. You can make inferences or have ideas about what it might have been. But yeah, I think that the question really strikes at the heart of who's the narrator of the film, whose truth are we witnessing? Um, and some of the stuff you can see, I think they try to tie it together a little bit at the end when they showed the real pictures over the credits. Maybe they're
Mhm.
like, see, it's closer to what we told you than it just being completely made up because we showed you these pictures of Kate Winslet and they look like pictures that the real Lee took. So, but yeah, I didn't suspect the twist at the ending until
Yeah, me
the
either.
last few scenes, and then I thought, oh, this is going to be a thing. Um, but yeah, it is an interesting way to tell a story. I don't know if it's fully successful. It is interesting, but I don't know that it's the best way to tell the story. And I will segue that into what I thought of A Private War as well, which was they obviously start the film with a snippet of the ending, and then there is a
Mhm.
countdown basically as they go through time to get you back to the final shot. They go days until this place. And so that leads you with a bit of a sense of dread and a finality, right? Also, they
Mhm.
start it with a quote that's sort of half finished. You feel there may be more coming at the end. And some of the dream sequences they put in the film were a bit distracting. I felt it was really jumbled. I thought the bouncing back and forth between time, they're very quick to duck out of places without explaining how she escaped situations, but then took the time to show other dangerous situations. There's a moment very early on, and of course, if this is based on a true story, then this is how it happened. But it kind of, without explaining, I was like, how did she not just die here? Right? She gets hit by a grenade attack, enemies surround her, and then we cut to her being agitated in a hospital where they're taking care of her. I just couldn't follow that for a second. I was like, why wouldn't they just kill her right there? Like, I didn't understand some of the ways she got out of things. Um, I had some issues with the way maybe they made her up to look, and things continued as far as how they were presenting her age as things go along. We can get more to that in the directing and acting part, but these are movies with I wouldn't say unique, but um, unconventional framing of how they tell the story. I think Lee's works a little bit better because even though you have this idea of or question of who's the narrator and how um, reliable are they, the story is told in a fairly linear fashion, and it's also um, I think the emotional beats make a little more sense at points. But there's some real, almost like surreal sequences in A Private War that were hard for me to wrap my head around, and also maybe we'll just get to the into the writing and the true storytelling of these people are obviously damaged by what they're seeing. You have one person who's been in the military, got out of the military because it was so difficult, and then chose to take on a life going to war zones, put their life in danger to get these pictures. I'm not saying there's not a bravery or that's not like a worthy um, calling, but it's odd for me to wrap my head around why someone who worked so hard to get away from those things would voluntarily put themselves back into a situation like that. And that actually ends up being one of the characters who handles all the difficulties the best out of the other people. So I don't know if that's writing, acting, or whatever, but yeah, unconventional narration. I don't feel like it was completely successful in either case.
I think that they also, when you're dealing with correspondence and journalism in general, and they talk about the movie in terms of, um, journalism is a rough draft of history, and obviously the people that made these movies respect both of these women very much, and it seems like that should come from a place of almost absolute, a faith in absolute truth. Like this is a document of what happened, and making a Hollywood movie about them and then taking dramatic license with plot points and like adding the Stanley Tucci character was not a real person that was part of Marie's life. Um, it seems like there's really some conflict there because now I question like their motivation behind it. I mean, I want to think that the people that made these movies really look up to these women, but not what these women stood for in terms of documenting truth and being truthful about it. And if they were going to take dramatic license with what was going on in their life for the sake of entertainment. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, you were touching on something I was going to ask about because, like, why was the Stanley Tucci character even added? That to me seemed weird.
Yeah.
I guess I go
And the
back.
people,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the people that knew her and saw the movie, that was one of their big criticisms
Yep.
was adding his character and then Joy, who was working back at the newspaper. Like she didn't have those close people in her life. She really was alone, and because her life was such a life of solitude and constantly moving around. And why? I mean, you want to humanize her, but like I said, she stands for like documenting the truth, and then you take her life and twist it. It's weird.
Yeah, and
I
I get.
agree with that.
I was just gonna go back to what Kyle said about who is the narrator in Lee, and I guess I felt that it was more of they had the story, they know what she did, and they, as Tom so eloquently put it, Hollywoodized it to be able to tell this story in a unique way. Whether you liked it or not is irrelevant in that sense, but they they knew what she had done. They had stories. They had interviewed other people and conglomerated it into this story and told it in the way of, the son finding this stuff. Whether that was effective or not, obviously for you was not, but that I believe that the truth was there. It was just the way that it was presented. Does that make sense?
Do these movies work better as documentaries? I think they would have been better served to just be straight documentaries.
I think there
Maybe.
are
Yeah.
documentaries.
Yeah.
There are documentaries about them, like with
Oh, okay.
Smashing Machine, they took the documentary and decided to make a Hollywood movie out of it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Lee there, the Lee documentary is it's it's like watching Schindler's List. It's amazing to watch and it's hard to watch all at the same time. Because it's just amazing.
One of
what
those
she
movies
did.
you only want to watch once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it highlights, an amazing true hero in our world that did I just can't even think unthinkable things that I would never. I don't know if I could even be in some of the situations that she was in and be able to sleep at night. And it really highlights those. Is it better? Maybe, but I also enjoyed this as much. I don't know, but I did watch the documentary after I watched the movie because I was so inspired to learn more about Lee Miller.
And do you guys think that the time periods had any impact on the stories? In
Yes.
that, like how much could actually be documented and how it was documented? and those kinds of things. Like, like in the 40s, something from World War II versus something, in the 2000s. Like,
Yeah.
Actually,
how much more was actually documented about those moments and about those kinds of things, and what impact did that have on being able to tell these stories?
How many
actually
pictures
feel
could you
like it
put on
was,
a card?
yeah, I feel like it was easier in the 40s to get this sort of information because I believe there was more of a sense of, while you were always in danger, journalists weren't targeted in the way they have become, as we've seen like regimes and civil wars and things like that. Uh, one of the first things they do is wipe out journalism and intellectuals that
Mhm.
oppose them. So now
Yeah.
I think I would argue it's actually more dangerous now to go into war zones and try to get this information out. But you also have a lot more tools to do so, like the internet, like
Right.
other clandestine ways of communicating that you can get information. Whereas in World War II, the options were to be there, get the pictures, and then send them back. I mean, that was
Mhm.
really the only way to accomplish what you were seeing in the movies.
And hope someone cared enough to make them
Right,
available
right.
to tell the story that you were
Yeah.
showing.
Well, and they
It-
also
it-
have to make them pass the censors,
Yep.
Yeah,
right.
right?
yeah.
Especially in the
The, and
40s.
Yeah.
yeah, and we
Anytime.
like. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, anytime you're a photographer, cameraman, reporter, whatever, all your stuff has to go through the censors. I mean, even if you're a soldier and you're writing
Mhm.
a letter home, it goes through the censors. And, there's certain things that they're not going to let pass because, well, some of it's secret.
Well, and I would guess
Yeah,
again though
but
in the 40s in that time period that for journalism when they're doing pictures and stuff, some of that stuff wasn't probably as secure as it would be today.
yeah,
That's
but then
true.
again, you could argue the opposite though today too. We like
They
to
would have
think
a
that.
much bigger chance of getting them out, right? Or
With the
getting
There are a
internet
lot
and
more
received.
stuff, yeah,
places
yeah.
to
Well,
disseminate
I
them,
guess I
and
was
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking more of like in the 40s, everyone wanted to believe of, the American hero and the soldiers doing all these great things and the clean cut and, perfect 2.5 person family and all that, or 4.5 family picket fence and everything was perfect. And they didn't want to see the atrocities of war. They didn't want to see the realism of war. They just like, yep, we're winning the war. And so I think there's a social aspect involved as well when it comes to censoring, especially during like World War II era. Not to say that there's not a lot of censorship now, because that's also not true. But I happen to agree with you, Kyle, that there's probably more outlets that things can be snuck or
mm,
you know, well, it got released. It wasn't supposed to. I don't know how that happened. Kind of crap.
All right. Well, our round ended a while ago, so let's put it to a vote. We'll start with Gabe.
Uh, in spite of the kind of I don't know, I felt a little bit betrayed, but I really liked the writing in Lee overall, so I'm going to go with Lee.
All right. Andrew.
I'm going to go with Lee.
Tom.
I'm gonna go with Private War.
All right. And Kyle.
I'm also going to go with Lee.
Okie dokie. Lee was based on the lives of Lee Miller, the only authorized biography of Lee Miller's life written by her son, Anthony Penrose, and published in 1985. The script for the film A Private War was written by Arash Amel, based on the 2012 Vanity Fair article, Marie Colvin's Private War by Marie Brenner. And just so you guys know, the censors got to the IMDb pages on both of these films, and there's not a lot of trivia, especially for Private War. So let's
Wow.
move on to our second round, which is acting.
Yeah. So let's talk about A Private War. Rosamund Pike, who I believe won some awards for this acting, who is absolutely sensational. Tom Hollander, and we mentioned Stanley Tucci, and then there's
The Tooch.
the Tooch, Jamie Doran, which I always call him the discount Henry Cavill, or Henry Cavill. Um, I, you know, Rosamund Pike, she pulls in like her mannerisms, the way that she talks is so interesting until you actually get to see Marie in like at the end the show, kind of her actually talking, and you're like, wow, it's incredible how much of her she picked up and how much of her mannerisms and how she was able to, she wasn't able to go and talk to her and meet her and shake her hand and learn about her firsthand, to pull that from, I would assume, other videos and other things that we perhaps haven't seen, but to be able to get that sense was, in my opinion, pretty incredible. Like, it was really interesting to see that, like, even the way when she would talk, she would cock her head, and I just found that to be really fascinating. The way that she adapted to that character. Um, Now, Lee, Kate Winslet, Andy Samberg, Alex Skarsgård, three just like, I think this is the first Andy Samberg movie I've watched that was serious for Andy. Like, I don't think there was anything before this that I was like, oh, Andy Samberg's in this. And I was really taken back that he was in it when I saw the movie the first time.
I don't know. Hot Rod's pretty serious.
Is it?
Well, it deals with some very serious subjects.
It does.
Well, it does. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So it was
Sorry.
no, you're fine. It was very fascinating to see his acting chops and to really see a different side of what he does and who he is as an actor. Especially with all the goofy stuff that he's done in the past. Kate Winslet, she ages very well. She is an incredible looking woman. She does a fantastic job. She fits the role. She feels like she grew up in the 40s. Like, she just has that aura about her as she plays this part. And Alexander Skarsgård, but I mean, he's just awesome. Yeah, those are my, I don't know. Kate Winslet she's just phenomenal in this movie. So
Yeah.
She was fantastic. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's one of those people who always gives a good performance. Maybe not always great, but I don't think I've seen a Kate Winslet movie that I thought like, oh, she's bad in this, or anything. I haven't seen all of her movies, but I'll start with A Private War, and I guess I'll start with a controversial take. I feel like Rosamund Pike was doing a very good job doing an impression of someone else. It was hard for me to always get sucked into her believability. I thought some of her actions, and this may come down to the writing too, is some of the portrayals of her PTSD and mental struggles or battles with alcoholism and things. They're about as unsubtle as a sledgehammer. There's scenes where she's literally running around a room drinking everything she can find out of a bottle. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's true, but it's also a very slap you in the face, like, look, pay attention. I guess it is a show, not tell, which is okay, but it just seemed over the top at points. And I did not always enjoy her accent, which I know is based on a real person, but I don't know. It kind of felt false coming off of her. She felt like she was doing an impression of somebody.
The
Stanley
low,
Tucci,
that
I
low
like.
rumble.
Yeah, I like Stanley Tucci. I don't know if he needed to get his SAG insurance this year or what was going on. He's in the movie for 5 minutes. Um, he is part of one of the great shots of the movie, which is her getting in the bathtub. That was kind of cool. Also, Rosamund Pike has some old lady abs, which is kind of funny. And I think her hair deserves a Best Supporting Actress because it's insane.
I was curious if
Um,
the abs were real. There were moments I was like, are those real?
boy, howdy. I don't know. If so, she's ripped. And I don't feel like she's the kind of person who puts that time into her body, considering how much she drinks and smokes cigarettes alongside her hair, packs
That
of
character, you
cigarettes.
mean?
Yes, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alongside hair, I think cigarettes could be another
Oh
Best
my
Supporting
gosh.
Actor in either of these movies. The amount of smoking in these films
Yeah, we should
was
cover that in
ludicrous.
overall. The
Yeah,
cigarettes, yes.
yeah. So
Agreed.
I don't. A lot of the supporting characters were kind of in and out of A Private War. It's really a movie about her. Um, I felt like some of the choices, like bringing in Norm, the photographer, he's obviously misery bait. You know something bad's going to happen to him. Like it's so set up. Jamie Dornan was good. I thought he was good. Again, I questioned his character's mental stability in making that decision to go back to a life like that when he just got out of everything. But remarkably, he handles it well. Um, I don't know. I didn't enjoy it as much as I'm sure other people did. Lee, I think I like Andy Samberg as a person. I like him as a comedian. I actually like him as a musician. There were times in this movie where he suffered from wandering accent, which is something that a lot of D&D players will know about. But sometimes he'd be very much from Brooklyn or Boston and make me think he was about to do his Marky Mark impression. And then other times just seemed totally normal. It's kind of confusing. Felt like he had some okay stuff to do in the movie, but not a whole lot. The movie really focuses on Kate Winslet, who I think gives a good but kind of uneven performance. Alexander Skarsgård, or whichever Skarsgård this is, I know he's not Stellar Skateboard or whatever Stellan Skarsgård, and he's not Pennywise. That's all I know. But he does an all right job. He doesn't also have a whole lot to do in this movie in places. Um, Huge shout out to whoever keeps Kate Winslet's breasts up like that. That's a pretty great job for someone of her age. And yeah, I thought good, not great on both counts.
Um, it doesn't really matter. They were magnificent. And there's a shortage of perfectly good breasts in this world.
I
Um,
thought
yeah,
what
Can those be a supporting actress?
I
Where
think
are we going with this?
I'm trying
well,
to like jump
they're
in here
parts of an
before we.
actress that require support.
Let's go, Tom. Let's hear what Tom has to say.
Yeah, so I
All right,
thought
talk about tits, Tom. Go ahead.
I I I think the scenes when they went back to the interview, I mean I don't really know if I can like tell good makeup from bad makeup, but I will tell you that every time they went back to the interview and she was just sitting there talking, um it was might have been the most compelling part of either movie. Like I don't know why her sitting there and just talking, I just couldn't take my eyes off the screen because I just wanted to sit there and listen to her talk. And um it's just I don't know. She is a phenomenal actress, and I mean I don't think I've seen her in anything that I didn't really care for her in. Um and uh, I do agree with Rosamund Pike. Some of the stuff was a little bit I don't know how you want to say tightly wound s- scenes that she had. Um I think what I like about Kate Winslet, she's just so very believable. Sh- she is a huge movie actress, and a lot of times when I see her, I forget about that. And all of her characters just feel very genuine, and um I don't really know what that uh, trait is that she has, but I just absolutely love it. And I've loved watching her, you know, mature and just keep moving through the roles that Hollywood, sets up for her. And I think it's phenomenal. And I liked Andy Samberg in this. I think it would have been really easy for him to say no to a project like this, and he was setting himself up for possibly some really big blowback. And I thought he handled it pretty well. The accent was a little bit all over the place, but I mean, he's putting himself out there and he's making an effort. So I have to applaud that.
Yeah, and I felt when I first saw Andy Samberg in it, it kind of took me out of the movie. Sometimes you see people and they're so much associated with other things, and he's so much associated with like some great comedy. To me, it's like I first saw him, I'm like, I'm not in on this. I'm not getting this. But that being said, I really actually enjoyed his performance, and he was the kind of person he and I don't know if he's acting or not, but he seems like a really great guy, and he seems like the kind of person that Lee Miller would have trusted and confided in and been good friends with. And so he took me out of the movie because I knew it was Andy Samberg to a certain degree, but I also enjoyed his performance. I felt like he was he was a very genuine person. And I kind of felt the same about Jamie Dornan in A Private War. I'm not sure I will ever watch any of the 50 Shades of Grey kind of movies. I'm not sure I'll ever care about that. But he had this genuineness to him. He seemed like a genuine, like, friend, a genuine person, a trustworthy person in these scenarios. And I liked that about his performance. I have a weird thing with Rosamund Pike. She at times doesn't seem entirely human to me. She seems a little bit. I think she was really great in Gone Girl because you believed that she wasn't really a normal human being. She was maybe a psychopath. And there's something about Rosamund Pike that doesn't have a human feel to me. And I don't know what that is. And I felt like that in this movie too. I think she had a great performance. She did some really great things in this movie, but there's something about her that's almost robotic that I don't like. And I got the opposite feeling about Kate Winslet. She seemed very human, and that she seemed very vulnerable. She seemed very human, and she was very relatable and very likable. And I think to me that's one of the big things between these movies. And I don't know if we talk about casting in this category or not, but I think some of the casting choices were kind of interesting. Andy Samberg being one of them, Rosamund Pike being another.
Are you saying she's a
I'm
replicant, Gabe?
She might be. She might be. I
But
didn't get that like glint from her eye
I mean,
in any of the scenes, but they probably cut that.
but maybe we're basing it off of her performance. I mean, I don't know how much. I haven't gone and looked at a bunch of video if there even exists of Marie Colvin. Maybe that's how she was. Maybe she was
Maybe,
just kind of
maybe,
stone
but
cold and robotic and, as you said, not quite human. I mean, I would think that anyone that does some of the things that either one of these women have done, they're they have a stronger mind or something inside of them that I think most people would have difficulty doing what they do. And
I
maybe
agree. But I feel like for me, it's not just this movie. It's other
sure,
Rosamund
sure,
Pike
sure.
films, and I've always felt that way about her. And like I said, she was,
this was her apex. It
but
was
she did a
perfect.
great. Don't get me wrong. She did do a great job, and I really love the parts, where she was kind of coming to terms with having. Well, she didn't fully lose the eye, but she was blind in that eye, and I think there were some really touching moments where she was like, coming to terms with that, and then eventually at some point she just said, "Screw it, I don't care. I'm not wearing this patch anymore." And I felt like there was, I'm not saying she didn't do a great job, but there's something about Rosamund Pike that makes me feel like she's not. She there's some missing emotion there, and
Yeah.
and I cannot
replicant.
explain it. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Almost everything I've ever seen her in.
It's
Yeah.
the
All right,
I think it's
let's-
the warmth that Tom talked about for Kate Winslet.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
she is. She's very welcoming and relatable.
All right. Let's put it to a vote. Andrew.
I'm gonna go with Lee.
All right. Tom.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Lee also.
Kyle.
Oh, I know I knocked it, but I'm going to go with the Private War because I kept waiting for Andy Samberg to say hello to your mother for me.
And Gabe.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Lee, and because even though they kind of underused some of their great actors, Marianne Cotillard, which we didn't even mention, there's a lot of great actors in that, so I'm gonna go with Lee.
I mean, Andy Samberg was no pop star in Lee.
No, he
That's
wasn't.
Taron Egerton was.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Finish your thought, Gabe.
What's he say? Never stop, never stopping. Is that what he said?
I
What's
was a
his?
fan of that movie. Yeah.
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 Taron Egerton was originally cast in A Private War, but ended up dropping out, and Jamie Dornan replaced him. On the first day of filming, Kate Winslet was rehearsing a sequence where Lee Miller was running down the street in St. Malo under bombardment in 1944 when she suffered an accident and slipped and injured her back. Winslet decided to keep filming and returned to the set that same week despite her injury, having 3 huge hematomas on her spine and barely being able to stand up due to the pain. That's dedication right there.
Dude, you know how much your back, like you just twist a muscle. And all it takes is for you to like cough or breathe wrong or sneeze or point your finger and your entire body just tells you to fuck off.
As someone on the ass end of his 40s, I totally understand that.
I can't even imagine that much damage and still just, wow, the amount of pain. Yep. Wow, golly.
All right, let's move on to our third round, which is directing.
Hey. So, I believe these are 2 directors that we have never talked about before.
You are correct. They are not on our list of directors that have records for us.
That's true.
So this is kind of exciting. Both of these. So I want to first start off by saying both of these movies I feel were directed extremely well. I feel that they were directed by directors that felt much further into their careers than the 2 of these directors are. We'll start with Ellen Kuras. Damn it, this is why I always look it up beforehand.
Ellen Kuras, I believe you're right.
Ellen Kuras, who directed Lee. So about 2/3 of the way through Lee, it kind of, when once Paris is liberated.
What are we talking about?
I said lubricated. It's when you free something by greasing the wheels.
Wow.
I would like to be lubricated.
Let's just take that out. When Paris is liberated, the tone shifts, and there's this part where the movie almost shifts into kind of a thriller, where um, Lee, they travel into Germany, and they don't know what they're looking for. We know what they're looking for, but it almost turns into this a little bit of a thriller, and there's high tension, and you know what they're going to find, and you almost hope that they don't, because it isn't going to change history. We know that eventually it's found and the truth comes out, but you almost don't want it for them, but you know that this is what they're looking for, and you're dreading that moment. um and while both of these deal with war, it really seems like the front line stuff, the real um bombardment and explosions, and the close combat stuff, it really seems more, there's a lot more of that in A Private War than there is in Lee. Which I feel like Lee kind of has a more difficult load, because the drama needs to be, I would say, manufactured, but it's there's um they're just kind of like fighting the causes, or the powers that be, to get the truth out, and both of them are up against deniers, and um public sentiment about wanting to just move on from these atrocities. And what I think Lee does really, really well is, without the use of those, explosions and special effects and everything else, it really kind of pulls you along. And I think a lot of that has to do with Kuris's direction, and the way the movie starts as a romantic movie, and then it moves into a war movie, then it moves into a thriller, and then um, it ends with this, kind of family denouement. And I'm not a huge fan of the ending, which is why I didn't vote for it in the first category. But beyond that, I think it's done really well. Um, Now, that's not to say that the Private War, it's difficult, because there's so much bad things going on in the world, and there's movies about every single conflict, and it's um I don't know, it's almost, there's just like rubble and explosions, and all of these people's stories need to be told, and how do you take these stories and make them unique and make people care in a very, very cynical world? And um it's not surprising to me that either of these films kind of failed to find an audience with the general public, and it makes me very sad. um Matt Heineman has directed multiple war movies, and I think he was an excellent choice for Private War, because the movie is so combat heavy. Um, I don't even really know which way I want to vote on this, but I think yeah, both of them are done really well, and I yeah. Anyway, I talked too much. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think both of these were very well directed, honestly. I really enjoyed the cinematography in Lee, and I really enjoyed how maybe Mike, maybe you have some trivia on this, and maybe I'm kind of off base, but I really like how they kind of recreated the time period in Lee. It felt authentic, and I felt like even the cinematography kind of represented that a certain period of time. It had a very kind of old school film kind of feel to it, and I just thought some of the cinematography was just beautiful. And you get these really great close-ups, uh, and it just, I thought it was really beautiful, and I felt like A Private War was also very confidently directed. You know, I I didn't quite get the same kind of connection to the characters in A Private War, but I did I did realize, how different these conflicts are nowadays. It's the same old, but it's also kind of it's also very different than it used to be. And how connected we are, and how, you know, I don't know, you just think about, how the technology has changed in both waging these conflicts, but also in reporting upon them. And it makes it very interesting. I mean, in Lee, she goes into a room and she cuts up negatives. And it's like, it's so different than what you see in a private war, where, I'm sure it's all digital at that point, and they can transfer this stuff almost immediately. And there's copies of it, and it's preserved. Um, that kind of thing. But I felt like both of these were very, very competently directed. I felt like the subject matter was handled very well. Because not only is it these conflicts, these outward violent conflicts, but it's also about the inward conflicts that these people are suffering. When it comes to things like smoking and drinking, but also, women's, women's role in the world and what they have to deal with, and just being able to do these jobs that they want to do. And I think both of them handled it very, very well.
I find it interesting that the director of A Private War did a lot of documentaries, and so and I would say that some of, especially we talked about some of those high impact scenes where there's explosions and gunfire and things going off, felt very much, rough and tough down in the field, documentary style, run and gun kind of feeling to them. Kind of shows through, I think, a little bit with that. I don't think, if I remember rightly, let me check. This wasn't his first, story told versus documentary, but it definitely shows through his style of a documentary that I would say, kind of has a feel to it, in that sense. With Ellen Kuras in Lee, she was the cinematographer for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is fabulous. And so I would assume that as director of Lee, it's one of those things, it's hard to not bleed into your other skills and talents. And so I'm guessing some of that definitely helped in her decision making and her way of being able to tell that story. You were saying, it felt very realistic and real genuine with the sets and the shots. And I think part of that is just that cinematography essence inside of her helps her tell that story, to make sure that, you're getting into that feel, that moment, instead of just telling the story or showing the story. You actually feel like you're a part of the story. So I found that to be really fascinating.
And I feel like Tom appreciates, her kind of connection to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, because that's one of your favorite films, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, it's currently my number 2. That is correct.
Yeah.
No, number two.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie,
It
and
is.
and again, there's great performances in that movie, even from somebody. It almost kind of, I know this is the wrong category, but it almost relates to this. Or Andy Samberg comes in and does a great dramatic performance in this.
Jim
And
Carrey.
Jim Carrey in Eternal Sunshine comes in. And I think one of the hallmarks of great comedians is that they are actually, in many cases, great dramatic actors. And Jim Carrey in that is a great actor.
Well,
So
It does
she was
it
used
does
to directing Kate Winslet too.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
Yep.
it I
Yep.
mean, obviously, of all the cinematographers that she worked with, and Kate Winslet was she was a producer on this too, I think, but,
Yep.
that she would have a say in the cinematographer, and for her to think back of all of the amazing movies that she shot with people like James Cameron and Sam Mendes to go back to Eternal Sunshine, I think is really a validation for, um, the work there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And Kate Winslet
sure.
was also a producer as well. Anyways.
Yeah, sorry, I've been talking. I've been looking up some stats, thinking about these movies. So yeah, both war movies can be hard to watch at times, and I think they're supposed to be, to capture the inhumanity of war and the damage it does to people who are not part of the armed conflict. I mean, I think the best example of that is at the end of A Private War, where you learn about all of the refugees trapped behind enemy lines. And I think these movies do a great job of exposing that secret piece of war that a lot of us don't like to think about or see. And the directors are interested in honing in and capturing these moments and exposing these to the broadest audience. I think that is not only the focus of the movie are these women and the extraordinary things they do, but also their desire and diligence in exposing things that otherwise would go hidden in the world, these atrocities and the cost of war. Um, I think both movies look great. They are shot very well. The combat and armed, conflict they find themselves in, they feel immediate and present and dangerous. Some of it gets a little muddled when there's too much running and explosion things going on. It can be a little bit hard to track some things, but I think they did a great job at that. The quiet moments they also did very well. I agree with Tom, the sitting and listening, just to Kate Winslet talk about her life. I think she's the kind of actress that you could just do that for, an indeterminate amount of time, and they focused on that. I think one of the things that Private War did not do as well was, I know they're working with non-traditional or probably non-professional actors, but I think there were some performances that took away a little bit of focus because I noticed a couple times people spiking the camera, like looking right down the lens. And some of that's forgivable, but it can take you out of the story rather than saying like, hey, let's do another take or things like that. But it was very raw and immediate, with the crying women and the crying children and all the explosions. I think they got across in both movies exactly what they were trying to get across. The danger, the atrocities, the extraordinary lives these people lived. And there was a lot of interpersonal relationships between people, and sometimes that can really bog me down or slow stories down when there is a real momentum in the storytelling, based around something very urgent or serious to tell. But I think they handled that pretty well. The statistics I was looking up were how many wars or armed conflicts are currently going on in the world, and there's a wide-ranging set of numbers from as low as 56 to just above 100. And a lot of those wars are wars that the average person, or conflicts the average person in America would be completely unaware of. And some of them have been going on since the early 20th century and really have never stopped. And a lot of the conflicts we see in A Private War, which is a much more modern movie, they're not finished. People still die in these places every day. So it's crazy to see how hard they worked to expose these things and get them out. And as much as they may have made a difference, it seems that just war is a state of mankind, which is maybe something the movies are trying to get across as well. They make you interested in what's going on in the wider world around you.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's almost human nature, right? Unfortunately. All right, let's put it to a vote. Tom?
I believe I'm muted right now. Well,
Nope.
Nope, I can hear you.
no, I'm not. Oh, great. For direction, I'm think I'll go Private War.
Oh, all right. Kyle?
I'm gonna go with Lee.
All right. Gabe?
Yeah, I really like the look and feel and the pacing and stuff of Lee, so I'm gonna go with that.
All right. And Andrew?
We'll go with Lee.
Okay. Kate Winslet previously worked with Ellen Kuras on Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which we discussed, and A Little Chaos, on which Kuras served as the cinematographer. Winslet and Kuras had talked about collaborating further, and the opportunity finally came about with this film. Kuras was at a bookstore in New York when she spotted a book about Lee Miller and noticed an uncanny resemblance between Miller and Winslet. She then sent Winslet a copy of the book and kept another copy for herself. Years later, Winslet bought an antique table that was owned by Miller. She then rediscovered the book on her shelf and talked with Kuras about it again. Winslet then started developing a movie project about Miller and asked Kuras if she would like to direct it.
Wow.
In a piece for Harper's Bazaar dated December 4th, 2018, war correspondent Janine De Giovanni, who knew Mary Colvin, writes critically of the film. There were no good guys at the Sunday Times where Colvin worked who cared for her well-being. There were instead editors who wanted scoops at the expense of the safety of their reporters. Colvin had many friends in London, but none of them were similar to the Bridget Jones style girlfriend character portrayed by Nikki Mucabird. In the film, her last boyfriend was not a caring and loving Stanley Tucci, but rather a man who gave her immense heartache and distress. There were no heads on sticks in Bosnia, as the characters meant to be Colvin's first husband, Patrick Bishop, says in one of the opening scenes. Heads were on sticks in Chechnya. Colvin's second husband, Juan Carlos Gumesil, is erased from the script altogether, though he played an important role in her life. Although positive about Rosamund Pike's performance, she recommends that her readers watch the documentary Bearing Witness instead. So that goes back to what Tom had said earlier about how they sort of uh, lied. I don't know if lying is, they just omitted certain things and changed certain things and did not make them seem the way they actually were, just to make the
Yeah.
film a little better.
It makes
Feels
me
weird.
yeah, it makes me even question most of the film now to
Yeah.
it not even I mean even if Rosamund Pike was like, "Yeah, don't watch this. Watch the real documentary." It makes me think that it doesn't have really any clout at all.
Well, that wasn't Rosamund Pike saying that. That was, I
Oh.
believe, that editor. That
Oh,
was
the
saying that.
editor.
The person that knew her. Yeah.
But still that it seems odd.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
It makes it seem like
And
the film wasn't
Winslet also had kind of an issue. I'll dig it up for the overall because that'll be my only thing for overall. But I'll take it back, to even more where you guys were talking about. Someone had brought up women in combat or women in the world during those time, during that time and during our time, even now. Uh, and Kate Winslet has a pretty foreboding story about her trying to get this project made and I think that would make a good overall. I want to know how you guys feel about, because I'm pretty sure you feel the same way I do.
Hmm.
So let's move on to our fourth and final round, which is overall.
I'm not sure there's much more that can be said about these movies, but I'm gonna give it a whirl. Um, let's see. Eye patches. Snake has a better eye patch than Rosamund Pike, but I think she has a better eye patch than. Isn't there a character in Kingpin that wears an eye patch for a minute? So I think she's somewhere in the middle as far as eye patches go. Heather asked me, where do I know Rosamund Pike from? And I said, oh, she was in Gone Girl, but she didn't have yellow teeth and crazy hair. It was very attractive. The sound design in these movies during the battle scenes was very good. The explosions, I think, particularly in Private War, were quite frightening and loud and intense. They did a good job getting your attention. They do a good job in that film too of creating tension in the movie, even though other things can happen in between without really feeling like that tension has been relieved. They're pretty good at keeping that line of tension going in the film, as you're sort of watching someone see more and more of these things and spiral farther and farther, even though they have, what we consider lighthearted or more good moments or lucid moments, etc. It's never fully gone. You never feel like this person is better or fixed, or it's an obsession. It's a thing they can't imagine not doing. And so you feel like eventually it's going to be destructive. I think the beginning of the movie sets that up as well. You kind of see the bombed out rubble and the name of Homs in, I think it's Syria. I can't remember. And that's where you're headed back to, because the interstitial's showing you the countdown to that. So there is this foreboding sense of dread going on that permeates the whole film. Lee, I think they did a good job with the accurate stuff, although it wasn't as in depth, and they didn't get into as much as you normally would in, say, a World War II film, because this sort of happens at the periphery of it. It's not a huge war film. It's a movie about war, but it's not All Quiet on the Western Front or a Saving Private Ryan, where the combat is the main focus of the movie. I always find movies where characters constantly smoke in these day and ages a little distracting, even though it's set back in a different time. You have to remember that. But what gets me as a former smoker is I think it's a thing I have a problem with in every movie. We'll show up in a room, a drink, have one sip, and then storm out of the room or leave because they're busy. The amount of times people light cigarettes and then immediately have to put them out, I don't know. That just bothered me. I know that's a weird continuity thing, but I didn't notice the scores too much in these films. I thought the cinematography was really good. The tone of the films was fairly consistent. The exception of A Private War, where you have these sort of surreal dream states. And I think that movie also has a lot more hard edits or jumps from time and space, where you're in one place and then the next scene you're just in another place. You're kind of scrambling to catch up. Maybe that's intentional, but it was a little hard to follow at times. Both movies did the same thing. They're focusing on a real person with a real body of work. They tell a little bit of the story at the beginning through on-screen text. They tell a little more at the end, and then over the credits, they show the real work or pictures of the real subject of the film. I don't quite know how I feel about that. I think it's a pretty common thing to do when your subject is a real person with a body of work, but it does kind of blur the line between your movie and the real world, which then makes me think, why didn't you just make a documentary about all this? Overall, I thought these movies were both okay. They were better than average. Neither of them really wowed me. I had problems with both of them in like pretty much all of the categories we discussed to different degrees. But I certainly think they tell the story of important people and important work that those people are doing. I'm just not sure how successful they were at conveying that all the time, and how much that would have reached and shown this to the greater world in a way that's impactful and powerful and lasting.
Yeah, I think I want to. I think I want to talk about cigarettes. I don't think I've seen a movie
Go
where
on.
people. I don't think I've seen movies where people smoke so much. In a long time, and maybe it's because of the MPAA or something like that. But apparently, in order to be a war correspondent, you need to smoke like constantly. There
Well,
were
I
a
feel like it
lot of
is.
cigarettes in these.
Think about a movie like Die Hard. Think about any hard-boiled movie. There are a
Yeah.
couple things you show. They're very pleasant and universal ways to show characters are under stress. That's either taking pills dry, chewing them up and swallowing them, or just swallowing with no water, or chain
Right.
smoking cigarettes.
Yes.
And in the case of A Private War, and a little bit in Lee, hard drinking. And while these
Yep.
people may have struggled with those, I feel like they're kind of cheats and shorthands and tropes they use to show, like, look at the immense amount of stress these people are under.
Yeah, and I think maybe, for Lee, in World War II, I think they even issued soldiers cigarettes. And I think it was a lot more common
That is correct.
Yep, 100%.
to have people smoking at that time. And you look at some of the movies that came out of that time period. A lot of the noir movies, they're all smoking in that, and it was considered, I think, maybe, even glamorous at the time.
It was good for you.
Right.
at
Even
the
the
time.
doctors did it and recommended it.
Yeah, they recommended it. Like, it was a thing.
And so, but it's unusual, I think, for us, in our modern moviegoer age to see, and I wonder about that, because I know there are like rules in film, right, where they're trying to limit the depictions of people smoking and that kind of stuff. And like these are two relatively modern movies that show a lot of smoking and drinking and that kind of thing. And so I found that kind of actually, in a way, shocking. Found it interesting.
What were
I
they
think,
rated?
I mean, part of it is that, I mean, smoking now gets you a rated R
Yep.
for your movie. So I think if you're gonna have if you're gonna get the rated R anyway, then they can go ahead and lean into it, and it's not that big a deal. So,
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah, and
it's
I
gonna stand. Go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say it's gonna stand out, like swearing or nudity anymore. That it's just if it doesn't work in the movie, it's going to look gratuitous. So you have to do it well.
Well, you just came up with a segue for me there, Tom. You said nudity. And
You're
both
welcome.
of these, yeah, thank you. I thought some of the nudity in these movies was kind of interesting. I didn't think it was gratuitous in either of them, but I want to know what it was about French culture at the time for people to be having like a lunch party and the women to be sitting around topless
It
the whole time. Can anybody explain that?
Yeah, it was.
You want to get back to that?
Get back to that?
Yeah,
Yes. I encourage it completely,
We
but
want to
I'm
return
Well,
to
not
a
sure
simpler time.
how.
It was
Right.
purely seen. It was purely seen, especially in a lot of that artistic and bohemian kind of culture with France, especially, but other European, that women being topless was the same as a guy being topless, no shirt. Like what's the difference? Topless beaches were like a normal thing that it's, and they still are. Like it's a different mentality, and allowing women to just take their shirts off just like a guy could take his shirt off. So that's
I think
why
notice none of those guys had their shirts off.
I know,
No,
I know,
none
I
of the
know.
guys had their shirts off.
I'm just saying that, but I mean
It was only the women.
that was it was just accepted.
Yeah, and I guess I just don't, I'm being a little bit facetious, but I also don't understand what the culture was at the time.
I mean,
And
there
I
was
thought it
even
was
a picture at
interesting.
the end of them topless.
Yeah, I know. Like an actual photograph of
Yeah.
them sitting around the table, like
And the one guy had his shirt
legitimate
unbuttoned, and yeah, I mean, it was just a thing.
Yeah. No, I found that kind of. I didn't understand it. I found it kind of interesting. But the other thing I found interesting is that when Skarsgård shows up, she decides to cover herself.
Hmm.
And I was wondering what that was about. What do you guys think that was about? That she suddenly had this modesty.
She mentions that she doesn't know him.
Yeah.
So I think she's more comfortable being that way around people she knows. And then she's very guarded and cagey when she meets someone for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
She's even, I would call her more than prickly. I'm not sure how anyone ever became friends with her.
Right.
Agreed. You really have to be persistent.
And remember too, she's American, so I'm sure she's there, and those American puritanical sensitivities come back. When she's around her comfortable French friends, it's there, but she was the only one that covered up.
Yeah, I was just say the French lady didn't.
Yeah.
And then
They didn't seem to care.
Cotillard enough to get him out. I always feel weird in movies where there is a conclave of libertine artists hanging around in a nice place, because I'm like, either you inherited a bunch of money, like it's generational wealth, because I don't think any of you are famous painters. Like, what is this life you live? You just hang out in backyards, your tits out, and eat wine and cheese and drink and watch movies at night? No, maybe that'd be nice if you didn't have bills and stuff. And I am not a puritanical. I am not I'm a very liberal person, but part of me wants to shake my fists and tell them to get a job.
Okay, Kyle, I know what this is about. I know. Do you want to come over on Saturday?
Are you showing?
How did you find out I was having a get together anyway?
Well, I know this time of year you have your Caligula party, and I've never been invited.
Bourgeois Caligula party.
I've gone through people's mail, so I know that it's happening.
And Gabe gave it up tonight earlier.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah,
folks at home were learning about this for the first time, so enjoy this interaction.
Yes. Yeah. If Tom's tits are out, I'm there.
My only gratuitous nudity, what I thought was in A Private War.
What part? Where she stands in front of
the back of her Furburger, or
when she stands in front of the mirror?
I didn't see how any
you
of
felt
that,
like that was
actually did anything for the story at all.
I think she's looking at her body, but also it's like, I don't know. She's trying to take in.
She took the patch off her
scars and stuff. Yeah. If she had a bunch of scars and stuff, I thought that would have been a little more interesting. But yeah, it was like, look, I have a 6-pack. That's kind of what it looked like. I wasn't complaining too much, but yeah, it was weird. You don't see a lot of rear Furburger shots anymore. I don't see a lot of hair like that on movies anymore.
Well, and then she started
I
trying to
this podcast to friends, by the way.
So then she started
I used to.
That whole scene just like it didn't feel like you could have done this like moment where they're, about to get intimate, and I don't know, it just felt very over the top for no reason. Like, it just didn't, it was weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
One of the other things I wanted to mention too is that, and I don't know what happened in real life, but I was really thankful that neither of these women were intimate with their close male friends. And they kind of hint at it. Andy Samberg's character, Skarsgård shows up. Look what the cat dragged in, and he can hear them, in the other room or whatever, and he seems kind of upset and disappointed. But I think one of the things I really liked it was that they were not sexually intimate with their close male friends. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I
It was
think that for me that would have disappointed. It would have been a little bit disappointing. Uh, I don't know why, but I don't know.
it was
What do you guys think?
refreshing.
You make
I
it
thought it
sound
was
like
refreshing.
Jealousy.
yeah, I mean,
Jealousy is why you would have been.
and I'm sure there was some animosity,
Yes.
just in general, just due to the fact that they had worked together, they were so close in that sense. But I mean, you
Yeah.
make it sound like, well, they chose not to write that in, and I'm like, did
Well,
they
I don't
choose not to
know. I
write
don't know
that
what
in?
really happened.
I mean,
But I feel like
probably
there was a
smelled
different
really
type of
bad.
intimacy there.
They probably had to do that. They probably smelled really bad.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well,
They probably
there is
I
a
think
part in
that's
Lee
the
where they
reason.
say they didn't bathe for a month.
Yeah.
They drove hundreds of miles and they didn't bathe for a month. Yeah, that probably
Again,
not pleasant.
they were in a war-torn country.
Right. Yeah, but there was a part of me that I was kind of relieved that they didn't cross that line.
Yeah, it'd be a
And
tempting thing to throw in a love triangle or a will they, won't they with someone, right? As a way to
Right.
heighten tension.
and sure,
But they
all of them.
kept it
They,
platonic.
yeah, they both had, things with other people. They had their moments,
Yeah.
but for those there were certain people in their lives that they didn't cross that line, and I thought, I don't know, maybe I'm weird. I found that refreshing that they didn't do that.
I'm glad it didn't turn
I agree.
into Tom's Caligula party.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're not invited.
Oh,
I'm
Never was
rescinding the
Who's not
invitation.
I never was
Never
invited,
was
Tom,
invited.
but I'm
I
still
I
still
did
gonna
invite
come.
you. I invited you. You used Lee's opening scene party to trash mine, and that's fine.
it's a little
It's
bit
fine.
like you remember Twisters at the end of
Yes.
Twisters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things got
I
filed.
don't know how
on-
I felt
yeah.
about that. I don't know. I had the same feeling about that. I kind of
Well,
wanted them to hook up
If
because that
Ky-
seemed like
if Kyle's
seemed
not
natural.
if Kyle's not coming, who's gonna look at me?
Who cares?
Wow.
I care.
Wow.
is it
I
over?
want to know who's gonna
Kyle.
look at me.
Kyle.
Oh, I'm first?
Yep.
Control your podcast, Michael.
Yeah, Jesus, get a handle on this.
God.
I don't know. Now I'm just thinking about Tom's party next weekend. And this makes this a very hard decision.
Mm.
You know what? Chuck went up to the Fur Burger. Give me a 5-4.
Wow, Gabe.
Mike just likes when I use the word Fur Burger.
I do. It's such a ridiculous word.
A little bit of hair pie.
Ridiculous.
Oh
phrase.
my god.
Gabe.
Oh my god. Do I have to vote? Okay, I'm gonna go with Lee. I think.
All right. You don't sound too sure about that, but we're
I
going to
do.
put it down. Andrew.
I liked them both. And Lee was very good too. So I'm gonna go with Lee.
Okay.
Andrew.
Lee.
Thank you. Tom.
I'll go Lee also.
All right. Kate Winslet said she was patronized by male executives when she was trying to get funding for this film. Winslet told Vogue in September 23, the men who think you want and need their help are unbelievably outraging. I've even had a director say to me, listen, you do my film and I'll get your little Lee funded. Little, or we'd have potential male investors saying things like, tell me, why am I supposed to like this woman? She said.
Jesus Christ.
So, yeah. Fucking
WTF.
awful.
Wow.
Absolutely awful. Number one, that's Kate fucking Winslet, and
No
number two,
shit.
shut the fuck up and give her money. That's what you do. You're a fucking executive. Find the money.
Oh,
All right,
and especially the topic.
let's move.
Like,
Yeah,
come on, guys. Like, what? Oh my god. Some people's kids.
you motherfuckers need Jesus.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to recommendations for this month. And Gabe, you are starting us off.
Wow. Yeah. So, at the beginning of this episode, I said, we're going to get in some lighthearted topics tonight about war correspondence. The problem is that I don't know a lot of other movies like this. So I'm going to recommend something that is very much unlike this. And I saw John Candy, I Like Me,
Mm,
the documentary about John Candy
mm.
that was at least partially produced by Kyle's favorite person, Ryan Reynolds. And it was very nice, and I enjoyed it very much, and I think it was a tribute to a very, very nice human being. And so, if you like John Candy at all, I would recommend seeing I Like Me.
Yeah, that scene
Agreed.
where he goes to Fallujah and takes his shirt off, it like
That's yep.
really sold it for me.
Yeah. Kyle liked his fur burger, and then
I
others.
can't believe Candy went full fur burger.
But
Wouldn't that be a fur dog?
That ruins everything. Thank
Wouldn't
you,
it be a fur
gentlemen, but
dog at that
was a
point?
great-
I would
It's a
assume with
very nice-
balls that big from behind, it probably looks the same.
Okay.
Oh my God!
Gross.
All right,
Hurt.
Gabe, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Thank you, Gabe.
You're welcome. Yeah.
You took away one of my recommendations that I had pulled up, so I'm glad I have multiple.
Yeah.
That's
I
so
mean,
good.
geez. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to know. With movies like these, it's hard to. It's like what else like this can I recommend?
Well, I'm guessing
But-
I Like Me will be on the roster at some point.
It's so
I'm
good.
sure.
Yeah, it's a good show.
It is well
it's
done.
very nice. Yes,
All right.
very nice.
Let's move on, Andrew.
I am going to actually go down my playlist of World War II movies that I have of putting everything in order. And I really enjoyed this. I felt it had a good message, and it was also based on a true story, and that is the 6888. And it's the World War II film about the 855 women that joined up and basically went overseas to filter 3 years worth of backlogged, undelivered mail to all the soldiers on the front line. And it's true story. They actually did it. They were a group of black women who faced huge scrutiny. 1 for being black, 2 for being women. And they went through 17 million pieces of mail, and they did it well ahead of schedule, and brought joy and actual hope to a lot of soldiers. And it is a very well done movie, very powerful, and highly recommended. So the 6888.
All right, that's amazing. I need to watch that.
Yeah.
So
Tom?
good.
Yeah, very nice.
So I'm going to go with a recent movie, and I'm sad that you can't see this in the theater anymore. I believe it's gone but you can watch it on Netflix for quote unquote free. So I'm going to recommend Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein.
Oh,
It is beautiful. The acting is incredible. Jacob Elordi, who I've always kind of just dismissed. I am now have on my best supporting actor roster. So it's just an absolutely incredible film from top to bottom. And I loved it. So you should check out Frankenstein. See it on the biggest screen again.
Here, here.
All right.
I back that 100%.
Thank you, Tom. Kyle.
These are all good recommendations. I'm excited.
All right. I'm gonna stay close to the topic on this one, to a movie I saw on the big screen, and there weren't a lot of people there, which kind of depressed me. This is a while ago, but it's a movie. It's one of those movies that you're like, man, this movie is so good, and I hope I never watch it again. And that is a movie called Warfare, about a group of soldiers that are basically trapped inside of a house in, I believe it's Iraq or Iran, one of those two countries. And it kind of plays out in real time as they're under siege. People are trying to flank them. People get injured. Backup comes, backup doesn't come, etc. It's very gritty, very real, very visceral, incredibly loud. It's uncomfortable. I think it handles the horrors of warfare in a way that is effective and gets through to audiences, even audiences that are jaded. So I really liked it. I believe it was written or created by someone who actually lived through it, so that they would have a record of what happened to him and his platoon for those of them who survived, including one of them who's had some head trauma and can't remember it very well and has prosthetics and things like that. He wanted to get this on camera, what they went through, before it was too late and no one could remember the details, and there wasn't anyone to tell the story to. So if you get a chance, check out Warfare. I'd also like to point out both of the movies we watched this month are very easy to come up with porn parodies of. You could just call one a private whore and the other one you could just call P. So just however you like. Mike, take it away.
It was
Thank you,
Ray
Kyle.
Ray Mendoza is who you're thinking of, one of the directors.
Right. Yes.
And it was Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I believe I said that first.
I know, but you second guessed yourself. I was wanting to make sure you knew.
I'm sorry for covering my bases.
You are correct.
I actually had to check with Tom on this one. So I had I Like Me as my second choice, but Gabe took that, and luckily Tom didn't take this.
You're welcome.
This is a brand new docudrama that is also on Netflix, but it is a miniseries, and it's Death by Lightning. It is dramatizes the stranger than fiction true story of the 20th president James Garfield, and admirer Charles Guiteau, who assassinated him. It stars Michael Shannon as James Garfield. It also has Nick Offerman as Chester Arthur, Bradley Whitford as James Blaine, Betty Gilpin as Crete Garfield, and she's fantastic. But I think the person that should take home an award is Matthew McFadden, who plays Charles Guiteau. It is a really well done miniseries, and and I believe it was Gabe was like, how can we know that these things happen? Well, in any docudrama, you're going to have a lot of dramatization, right? Because you're trying to tell a story, and there is some dramatization to some of the events, but the true events are actually weirder than you would think. Like, it's crazy what happened and what led them down this path to, Garfield being assassinated by this man. So I would highly recommend that you watch Death by Lightning. It's very well done.
And how much Michael Shannon strangely looks like James
Yes.
Garfield.
And I really like Michael Shannon. I think he
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
very good actor. And man, Nick Offerman
Yeah.
playing Chester Arthur is fantastic. I absolutely loved this miniseries. I think you guys will too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
think I
excited on
mentioned
this one.
an episode of. Yeah, I think I mentioned an episode of Last of Us that had Nick Offerman
Yes.
in it. Fantastic. He's
Yep.
just fantastic,
Yep.
and I like Michael Shannon too.
Me
Yeah,
too.
he's really good.
Yeah.
I went out for the. I auditioned for the bathtub that Taft got stuck in, but I didn't get a call back.
Mm, mm.
Wasn't that movie just called Tub?
Yeah,
Wasn't
Tub.
it just Tub? Yeah.
The Taft story.
Yep.
It's just me
sorry you didn't
covered
get
in
it, Kyle.
porcelain with a fat man sitting on me. You know, I didn't actually see any cameras. I think maybe I was taken advantage of.
Were there
think you might have been.
Furburgers in this?
Well, I wasn't allowed to wear pants. I had to have porcelain on. And of course, the porcelain covered my eyes.
Oh my God. All right, let's poke the monkey, find out who won.
God.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Lee!
Well, I hate to say it, but it wasn't even close. 12-4.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
indeed.
People voted for Kate Winslet.
Indubitably. Maybe.
Please leave us a review on whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. If you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell your enemies. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, where you can join the live recordings. Just search Cinesmack. In December, 2 animated family films go cog to cog to find out which is the best robot. It's the Iron Giant versus the Wild Robot. For Tom, Andrew, Kyle, Gabe, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
Okay.